Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dandvaditam Gaganasadarsham Tattvamasya Tilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalam Achalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namah. So I was doing like this to say that grow wings and fly away after finishing the Yoga Vasishtha. And you can't do it in a group, it has to be done individually. You know Kabir's famous song, Ud jayega panchi akela, Ud jao akele. There are two people here I see every day. One seems to be the Stula Sharira and the other seems to be the Sushumna Sharira. They are always together, either this way or behind and front. I don't know which one is the Thula and which is the Sushumna. One plays the guitar, other does not. No harm, I'm just saying. So, Vasishtha continued. Please don't get bored, they are very important, which is why Vasishtha is going on repeating. Because you hear and you go out and it is all gone. It needs to get in. By shaving your head, you will not find the Brahman. Nor by smiling with two holes in your cheeks. Vasishtha continued. After this enquiry, we were talking about the Sage Vitahavya, right? Yesterday, that's where we left Vitahavya. After this enquiry, the Sage Vitahavya remained in a state of total tranquility, samadhi, and even his prana did not move. There was no movement in his prana. Everything was at a standstill. So there are two messages here. When the mind becomes absolutely quiet and tranquil, the prana on its own accord becomes still. The other way around, when the prana becomes absolutely still, then the mind also becomes absolutely still. There are two ways of looking at this. Suppose somebody has not practiced any yoga, kriya, nothing, and then one day while sitting down and deep, what's that sound? It's in the sound system or outside? Where is it? Okay. Then it's all right. To me, it sounds like an ethereal Om being chanted. See, can you listen? Okay, you can still hear me, right? Yes? So, in that state, Vitahavya spent 300 years as if it was 1 hour. The body which was reflected in the consciousness was protected by the consciousness. After this period, the mind began to move to his heart, and there arose in it the notions of a creation. After remaining for 300 years, again slowly the mind which was still, from it came the notion of creation, which means now that I have experienced this, I need to do something. It could be for the good of the world, or it could be to keep his body in shape, but there was a desire. The desire was not selfish, but desire said, I must create something. In a way, it's a very dangerous desire. When the mind is still, then you feel, oh, should I share this with others? Dangerous desire. Then you get caught up in this circus. So anyway, what can you do? So he spent 300 years as it was an hour. The body which was reflected in the consciousness. After this, his mind began to move in his heart, and there arose in it the notions of a creation. Also he saw suddenly the outside world and said, oh, this is the creation of the mind. Then he spent 100 years as a rishi, as a sage, in Mount Kailasha. Please, if you go there, you won't find him. For 100 years, he became a demigod. Then he became Indra, the king of heaven, and ruled for 5 world cycles, 5 manvantaras. But with no interest in the self. Not a selfish desire, it was a natural movement of creation. Whatever, wherever and however the infinite consciousness conceives the order, so it becomes. Thus he saw all this in his own heart, which was free from all conditioning. On his account of his attainment of infinite consciousness, therefore, these notions apparently rose in it non-volitionally. He didn't require or he didn't will this to happen, it happened of no volition from his side. After this, he served as an attendant of Lord Shiva for a whole epoch, for a whole manvantara. See, we are talking of big timelines, not in a day or two. So you have to be patient. All this the liberated sage Vitahavya experienced. O Rama, for the liberated sages, this world exists only in all its purity, peace and perfection. As Brahman the infinite, how can there be bondage and liberation for them? Since Vitahavya had become one with the infinite consciousness, he experienced the experiences of all, and he does so even now. Simply means that the sage who is liberated, who is in that universal blissful consciousness, sees only that blissful consciousness is in others and does not see anything other than that. His subtle body may be affected in many ways, and he may be a king, he may be Indra, he may be serving Shiva, but he sees all this as part of a movie, not involved in it in any way. Because just now it came back, this sound was not here before. Toilet? What? Oh, okay. I thought somebody is so strongly going to the toilet. You can hear the sound here. Anyway, that's okay. After all, everything is the Supreme Brahman. Rama asked, if the creation of the sage was fictitious and imaginary, how were the embodied beings in it conscious and sentient? So you are saying that it was all volitionally created in his mind and it's not real. But how did he see these embodied beings as being conscious and sentient? Rama is not about to let Vasishtha go easily. Vasishtha replied, which means what? Rama, in his infinite compassion, asked this question, so tomorrow I and you will derive benefit from it. That's all, otherwise why? He could have heard first day Vasishtha and said done. But no. So Rama asked, if the creation of this... Okay. Vasishtha replied, if the creation of Vitahavya was fictitious, O Rama, so is this creation in front of us. That and this are both only pure consciousness. Their appearances being the result of the mind's delusion. There doesn't exist anything other than the pure consciousness. Rama then asked, Lord, please tell me. But he addresses Vasishtha as Bhagavan. Lord, please tell me how Vitahavya revived his body in the cave. Vasishtha replied, the sage had realized the infinite consciousness and he knew that the mind called Vitahavya was but a trick of infinite consciousness. He thought, let me see the body of Vitahavya. In his own consciousness, he saw all other embodiments that he had. Some of them had come to an end, others were still functioning. And he also saw the body known as Vitahavya sunk like a worm in the mud. Seeing it thus, he reflected, surely this body of mine is devoid of life force and not able to function. I shall now enter into the solar orbit, and with the help of solar power, which is called Pingala, I shall enter that body. Now this is written how many years ago? Much before solar panels came. Rishi had found a direct way of getting solar energy from there, without the panels. Now somebody says, oh, they had solar. I beg to differ, they did not have, or they had, we don't know. But here it is very clear that the solar energy is being brought by Vitahavya into his body directly from the sun. How? Through the Pingala nadi. Now, Imagine if the Parabrahman appears in that, what is Bhule Bisre something. And the guy asks him, "Kahan ke rehne wale ho?" He says, "मैं सब जगह में हूँ." Policeman will be confounded. ये कैसे हो सकता है? So, Pingala. Now the human body, the physical as well as the subtle body, the Sushumna, has two channels or nadis through which the cool energy called the moon energy and the warm energy called the sun energy enter. There is also the Sushumna nadi in the center, which is neutral. It's neither hot nor cold. Now, to revive the body which is absorbed in stillness and to bring action into it, what you need to get into it is the Pingala activity. So the Pingala is the sun, the heat. So he activated the Pingala. So he entered into the solar orbit, meaning the solar cycle, and with the help of the energy known as the Pingala, he entered the body. Then he thought to himself, "Or shall I abandon it? For what have I to do with the body of Vitahavya?" The sage subtle body then entered into the orbit of the sun. The sun ordained his own energy to execute the task. As the energy of the sun flowing through the Pingala led the way, it descended right where the body of the sage was lying in Prithvi. It means all his life forces, which have now become inactive and were resting in the Muladhara, the Pingala was sent there and it was raised. Following it, the subtle body of Vitahavya also entered into that body. A body was instantly revived. Pingala returned to the solar orbit and the sage proceeded towards the lake for his bath and wash, ablutions. Vasishtha continued. Well, you must understand that in the olden days there was a lot of land. So you did not have to build bathrooms and toilets. A lot of land. Unfortunately, we have more people now than land in this country. Right? So, if you wanted to have a bath, you went to the river. If you want to have your other ablutions, you went to some open space, breathe the fresh air and enjoy. In the evening, and the sage once again entered the forest with which he was familiar for the practice of intense meditation. Please don't take it as a license and go to the banks of the... He thought, I have already realized the falsity of the senses. Any further enquiry concerning them will be a contradiction. Having abandoned all vain imagination, this is and this is not, etc. I am established in the lotus posture again, and in him arose knowledge again. I am established in the consciousness of total equanimity. Awake I remain as if in sleep, established in the transcendental state of consciousness. I shall continue to be till the body drops away. Thus resolved, he meditated for 6 days, which passed as if in a moment. After that, he lived a long time as a liberated sage. He was free from exaltation and sorrow. At times he would address his mind thus, "O mind, look how blissful you are. Now that you are in a balanced state, remain like that all the time." I didn't want to mention something when I was talking. A lot of wisdom was given to me by Maheshwarnath Babaji in the morning when we went out for ablution. Because nobody is there listening, even secrets. Anyway. O mind, look how blissful you are. Now that you are in a balanced state, remain like that all the time. And then you would address his senses as follows. "O senses, the self does not belong to you, nor do you belong to the self. May you all perish. Your cravings have ceased. You will no longer be able to rule me. The error of your existence arose from the ignorance of the self, even as the non-perception of the rope gives rise to the erroneous perception of a snake. All these errors exist in the darkness of non-wisdom. In the light of wisdom, they vanish. O senses, you are different from the self. The doer of actions is different from all these. The experiencer of experiences is different, and the infinite consciousness is different from all these. What is whose error and how does it arise? It's like this. Trees grow in the forest. Ropes are made of other fibers with which the timber is bound together. The blacksmith fashions an axe, etc. And with all these, the carpenter builds a house for his own livelihood. Not because he wants to build his house, but the wood is available. Thus, in this world, all things happen independently, one after the other. And their coincidence is accidental. Like the rope, like the ripe coconut falling coincidentally appears again and again when a crow alights on it, making ignorant people feel that the crow dislodged the coconut. Who is to blame for all this? When this truth is known, error remains error. Knowledge becomes clear knowledge. The real is real, the unreal is unreal. What has been destroyed is destroyed, and what remains, remains. You have no idea, you people, we have invented so many stories and so many explanations for things. I know it's very simple. Every day I receive over 200 emails. Now, many of them, not all, many of them, I was going in a boat, the boat capsized, everybody died, I am alive, thank you very much for help. This crow didn't go and sit anywhere there, please. escape somehow. But the person is not thinking of the others who capsized and died and the suffering families. He is only happy I escaped. And then it has to be attributed to me. I was nowhere in the picture. Please, next time don't waste time on such emails. My husband was not talking to me. Suddenly he started talking to me. So I said, that's nice, at least you won't talk to me. But it's all because of you, the crow that sat on the coconut tree. I have nothing to do with it. Maybe you behaved well and he started talking. So spiritual understanding should be free of all these superstitions. This is what Vasishtha is trying to say. Right. I am laying bare the truth because we are doing Yoga Vasishtha. Also with the hope that the number of emails will be reduced. Selfish hope. So when this truth is known, error remains error, knowledge becomes clear knowledge. The real is real, the unreal is unreal. What has been destroyed is destroyed and what remains, remains. Thus reflecting and established in his knowledge, the sage lived in this world for a long time. He was established in that state which is totally free from ignorance and error, and which ensures that he is not born again. Whenever there was contact with the objects of the senses, he resorted to the peace of contemplation and enjoyed the bliss of the self. His heart was free from attraction and aversion, even when all manner of experiences came to him unsought. Once the sage Vitahavya felt inclined to abandon his body and to ensure that he would never again return to embodiment, he resorted to a cave on the Sahya mountain and sat in the lotus posture. Then Vitahavya said within himself, to himself, "O attraction, abandon your force of attraction. O hate, abandon hatred. You have played long enough with me. O pleasures, salutations to you. You have indeed sustained me all these years and even made me forget the self. O sorrow, salutations to you. You spurred me on my quest for self-knowledge, and it is by your grace that I have attained this self-knowledge. Hence, you are indeed the bestower of delight. O body, my friend, permit me to go to my eternal abode of self-knowledge. Such indeed is the course of nature. Everyone has to abandon the body at some time or the other. O body, my friend, you have been my relation for a long time. I abandon you now. You yourself have brought in this separation by leading me to the realization of the self. I respect you, but I am done with you. How wonderful. In order to enable me to attain self-knowledge, you have destroyed yourself. O mother craving, give me leave to go. You are now left alone to wither away because I have reached the state of supreme peace. O lust, in order to conquer you, I befriended your enemy dispassion. Forgive me. I proceed to freedom. Bless me, O merit. Salutations to you, for you rescued me from hell and led me to heaven. Salutations to demerit, the source of all pain and punishment. Salutations to delusion, under which I labored for a long time. and which is not seen by me even now. O cave, the companion of Samadhi, salutations to you. O cave, the companion of Samadhi, salutations to you. You have given me shelter when I was tormented by the pains of worldly existence. O staff, you have been my friend too, protecting me from snakes and saving me from falling down. Salutations to you. O body, return to the elements of which you are composed. Salutations to activities like bathing. Salutations to all the activities in this world. Salutations to prana, who have been my companions. Whatever I did in this world was done only with you, through you, and because of your energy. Pray, return to your own source. For now I shall merge in the infinite consciousness of the Brahman. All things that have come together in this world have to part one day or the other. O senses, return to your own source, the cosmic elements. Having said that, he said, I shall now enter into the self by the self, indicated by the culmination of the Om sound as a lamp without fuel. Now in the pranava, the first part, and O, is the creation and preservation. Now we have been told that the creation of the world and the preservation of the world. Vasishtha says, these two parts are the creation of thought and the preservation of thought. And then when you say Om, you end both. And when the Om is also ended, there is only the Supreme Reality. So, the creation of this world, the sustaining of this world, they all are the sound of the movement of Om and not real anymore in that state. The Ma sound ends everything, and what remains is unuttered, undescribable, indescribable. The Supreme Brahman, which is none other than you, when the mind is free. I shall now enter into the self, by the self, indicated by the culmination of Om sound, as a lamp without fuel. I am free from all the activities of this world, and from all the notions of perception and experiences. My heart is established in the peace indicated by the resonance of Om. Gone are delusion and error. But in Vitahavya, it took a long time for him to come to this state, the great Rishi like Vitahavya. So, while keep in mind that it can be instantaneous, also keep in mind that great sages have spent years, births, generations before coming to this freedom, so be patient. It takes time. One by one, little by little, it needs to be removed. The headband has been removed. Now the hair is loose. Now other things will slowly get removed. With all the desires in the mind utterly silenced, and having well grounded himself in the plane of non-dual consciousness, Sage Vitahavya uttered the holy word Om. Contemplating the esoteric significance of Om, he perceived the error of confusing the reality with appearance. By the total abandonment of all concepts and precepts, he renounced the three worlds. He became utterly tranquil, as when the potter's wheel comes to rest. By the utterance of Om, he dispelled the web of sense organs and their objects. So, word of warning. So, this Om is dangerous. That's why some great teachers say, chant Om carefully, it can cause danger. Because Om can disintegrate everything if done with a proper attitude. You're left only with the Supreme Self. Are we ready for it? If not, don't. Okay. But I'm not saying, some people say that. I think we should chant Om. And gradually what is not necessary will follow. It may take time. And then you are in your true essence. May not happen today, tomorrow. Or it could happen now. Who knows? Who knows among the people sitting here who has come here after going through many lives and finding out in maybe the last minute. Nobody knows. And nobody is interested in knowing. I am not. How many people can you look in? Anyway, by the utterance of Om, he dispelled the web of sense organs and their objects, even as wind disperses scent. After this, he pierced the darkness of ignorance. He beheld the inner light for just a split second, but renounced that too immediately. So when you meditate, if you see an inner light, don't get too carried away. You need to go beyond. Well, it may be a sign, you're moving in the right direction, but you need to get out of that too. He transcended both light and darkness. This light we are talking about is not the absence of darkness. It is a light beyond light and darkness, as we know it. But then there just remained a trace of thought form. This too, the sage cut asunder in the twinkling of an eye through the mind. Now the sage remained in the pure infinite consciousness, not modified in the least. It was like the state of consciousness of the just born infant. So since all of us have been just born infants at some time, when it is soft here and the breath is coming here, tuck, 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 Sahasrara, we have all, even if you don't remember now, experienced the Supreme Consciousness. All. Nobody has come to this stage without being an infant. You see, when the infant, just born infant, for some time, the prana is here, then it gets covered and closed, and that is the problem. And here we are trying through understanding, through knowledge, through yoga, through pranayama to open it. It's closed. But there was a time when we were all just born infants. If we can become again the just born infant, with no hate, no attachment, no nothing, crying when one is hungry. But in our subconscious, it must be there somewhere, which we don't know, which we don't realize. So, it is you, part of you, is you. This Supreme Consciousness. You might have forgotten it, but it has not forgotten you. So, it was like the state of consciousness of the just born infant. He abandoned all objectivity of consciousness and even the slightest movement of consciousness. He crossed the state known as Pashyanti. Pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Chanted in the morning. Pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Yadaditya gadam tejo. The Gita, 15th chapter. He crossed the state known as Pashyanti and reached the deep consciousness which is almost like deep sleep. He continued beyond that and reached Turiya. It is a state of bliss and not something. It is neither light nor darkness. It is full of non-consciousness, which means consciousness with objects. It can only be indicated by negation, saying, neti, neti, not this, not this. He became that which is beyond description. Can say in a way that's the innegable substratum that remains after the negation of all tangible objects, gross and subtle, which includes thoughts, of course. That state is the void, is the Brahman, the consciousness, the Purusha of the Sankhya, the Ishvara of the Yogi, Shiva, time, Atman, the Self. All of the mystics holding different views, this is essence. It is that state which is established as the truth by all these scriptural viewpoints. In that, Vitahavya remain firmly established. When the sage had thus become one with infinite consciousness, the body decomposed and the elements returned to their respective source. Thus have I told you, O Rama, the auspicious story of the sage Vitahavya. Reflect over it. Whatever I have said to you, and whatever I shall say to you, now is born of direct perception, direct experience and direct contemplation. Meditate upon this, O Rama, and attain wisdom. Liberation is attained only by wisdom or self-knowledge. Only through such wisdom does one go beyond sorrow, destroy ignorance and attain perfection. What has been described as Vitahavya is only a notion in our mind. So am I and so are you. All these senses and the whole world are nothing but the mind. What else can the world be, O Rama? Rama asked, Lord, nowadays, why do we not see many of the liberated sages transversing the sky? I have heard from the elders that liberated souls transverse the skies. Nowadays we don't see much. What is the reason? Nowadays we don't see much because there are more aeroplanes in the sky than space for sages. Anyway. Vasishtha replied, flying in the sky and other powers are natural to some beings, O Rama. The extraordinary qualities and faculties which are observed in this world are natural to those beings, not to the sages of self-knowledge. Supernatural faculties like flying in the air, are developed by even those who are devoid of self-knowledge or liberation by the utilization of certain substances or by certain practices or by buying expensive tickets in aircrafts. No, he didn't say. Now all the fellows who are flying in the sky are liberated souls. Right? The method may be different. Some may be flying with yogi, some may be flying on aeroplanes, some on chartered planes which belong to them. But that doesn't mean they are all illuminated souls who understood the truth. All this does not interest the person of self-knowledge, who is utterly content in himself. They who in pursuit of pleasures acquire these powers, tainted by ignorance, are full of ignorance. The sages of self-knowledge do not adopt such a course. Whether one is a knower of the truth or ignorant of it, powers like flying in the air come to one who engages himself in some practices. But the sage of self-knowledge has no desire to fly in the air. These practices bestow their fruit on anyone, for such is their nature. Poison kills all. Right? They say even the Buddha died of poisoning. Poison kills all. Wine intoxicates all. Even so, these practices bring about the ability to fly, etc. But they who have attained the supreme self-knowledge are not interested in these, or Rama. These are gained only by those who are full of desires. But the sage is free from the least desire for anything. Self-knowledge is the greatest gain. How does the sage of self-knowledge entertain any desire for anything else? In the case of Vitahavya, however, he did not desire these powers, even though they sought him unsought. Rama asked, how is it that worms and vermin did not destroy Vitahavya's body when it lay abandoned in the cave? How was it that Vitahavya did not attain disembodied liberation in the first place? Vasishtha replied, O Rama, the ignorant man's body is composed and decomposed on account of the states of his mental conditioning. In the case of one who has no such conditioning, there is no momentum for decomposition. Again, the mind of all beings responds to the qualities of the object with which it comes into contact. When a violent creature comes into contact with one who has reached utter equanimity, it may temporarily become equanimous and tranquil, though it may return to his violence when this contact is lost. Hence too, Vitahavya's body remained unharmed. This applies even to material substances like earth, wood, etc., for consciousness pervades all. Since Vitahavya's consciousness did not undergo any change, no change happened in his body. Since there was no movement of prana in it, even decomposition could not take place. The sage is independent and free to live or to abandon the body. That he did not abandon the body at one time and did so later is purely coincidental. It could be related to his karma, but in truth he is beyond karma, beyond fate, devoid of mental conditioning. Again, it's like the crow dislodging the coconut, purely coincident. Vasishtha continued. When the mind of Vitahavya had become unattached and totally free through the practice of enquiry, there arose noble qualities like friendliness, etc. in him. Now, by this last note before this, Vasishtha is saying that if one attains the supreme state of unalloyed consciousness, if one understands that one has nothing to do even with the mind, but is the pure consciousness, Tatvamasi, then that by virtue of that, the change happens not only in the mind is blown off. Even the small cells of the body in such a person are affected in some way. They are not like the cells of others. It has an impact even on the body and the mind, of course. So, if required for a purpose, it could be stored for a long time. In what in biological terms could be called suspended animation. But it is a headache. No reason to store it. It should fall off. Vitahavya had some reason for that, so it was stored. Why would you want to carry the burden along? Gone, finished. So for such people, when death occurs, as it occurs to others, under natural circumstances, or if they want to consciously let go, by shutting down the mechanism, they do so happily, welcoming death like a good friend, because they know it has neither life nor death has any meaning, as far as the supreme reality is concerned. Thousands of people die every day. Thousands of people are born every day. Right? We feel it only when somebody dies who is near and dear to us. But on that day or at that time when someone dear and near to us died, in this vast universe, forget about other universes, the earth, millions of people have died. We don't feel that, right? You feel it only when it is in our backyard. We don't see this, but it's a fact. Also, millions of children are born every day. I won't go into the merits or demerits of that, but millions. But we are happy when one is born in our backyard or front yard, whatever. So this is because the human mind has become accustomed to its narrow little cubicle made of mind and its thoughts of ego. When it is free, these things don't matter. One may, because the human body is made up of cells, and the cells are biologically linked to the family and the children and the parents and so on. Of course one may feel the reactions in the body, but the wise look at it carefully and say, let it go. Means nothing. Thousands have been born, thousands are dying. It's colossal. We look at it from such a small point of view. The vast universe. So in this vast universe, why would one have a desire to fly through the sky like this? And go where? Actually, when you say I'm traveling today from here to there. You are not traveling anywhere. You're all here and everywhere. When you say I'm traveling, you're going and coming back again like this, in a cycle. So that Rama has a question, because the last statement of Vasishtha, when the mind of Vitahavya had become unattached and totally free through the practice of enquiry, there arose in him noble quality like friendliness, etc. So Rama has a question. Rama, when the mind has been dissolved in Brahman, the Absolute, in whom do qualities like friendliness and so on come? This Rama is quite skeptical guy. Normally we would have been satisfied by what Vasishtha said. Oh yeah, okay. Vasishtha answered, Oh Rama, there are two types of death of the mind. One is where the form of the mind remains, and the other when even the form ceases to be. The former happens when the sage is still alive in body, and the latter happens when he is disembodied. The existence of the mind causes misery, and its cessation brings joy. The mind that is heavily conditioned and caught in its own conditioning brings about repeated births. Such a mind brings unhappiness. That which regards as my own, the qualities that are beginningless, is the jiva. It arises in the mind which has no self-knowledge, is therefore unhappy. As long as there is mind, there is no cessation of sorrow. When the mind ceases, the world appearance also ceases to be. The mind is the seed for misery. I shall now describe how the mind ceases to be. When both happiness and unhappiness do not divert a person from utter equanimity, outside happiness and unhappiness, then know that his mind is dead. He in whom the notions, this I am and this I am not, do not arise. What do you mean by this I am? I am a yogi, I am a teacher, I have many disciples. Actually, there are no disciples. All are gurus, but doesn't matter. He in whom notions, this I am and this I am not, do not arise. Also the notion, well, I am not a teacher, I am just an ordinary man, and so on. Both these are concepts of the mind. Both. Thus, it limits his consciousness, and his mind is dead. He in whom the very notions of calamity, poverty, elation, pride, dullness and excitement do not arise, his mind is dead and is liberated while he is still alive. The very nature of the mind is, can anybody guess what word? Don't look at the book. What word could have been used by Vasishtha? The nature of the mind is one word. Vasishtha says the nature of the mind is stupidity. Hence, when it dies, purity and wisdom dawns. Some wise men refer to the pure mind as that state of utter purity that prevails in a liberated soul in whom the mind is dead. Such a mind of the liberated soul while still the body is alive, is therefore full of noble qualities. Such a mind, which is dead, it's like drawing a line on water. But there is something there, subtle, for some kind of function, like teaching, for instance. Actually, it's a thankless task, teaching. There's no point, but still. In such a sage, noble qualities like friendliness, etc., the existence of sattva, of such natural goodness, in a liberated sage is known as sattva, purity, etc. Hence, this is called death of the mind, but when the physical form still remains. The death of the mind, where even the form vanishes, pertains to when the body is abandoned. In the case of such a mind, no trace is left. It is impossible to describe it in a positive way. In it, there is neither qualities nor their absence, neither virtues nor their absence, neither light nor darkness, no conditioning and no notions of either existence or non-existence. It is the state of supreme tranquility and equilibrium. They who have risen beyond the mind and the intelligence reach that supreme state of peace. Rama asked, Lord, what is the seed of this fearful tree known as the mind? And what is the seed of that seed, and so on? Vasishtha replied, Rama, the seed for this world appearance is the body within, with all its notions and concepts of good and evil. The body has a seed, which is the mind, which flows constantly in the direction of hopes and desires, and which is also the repository of notions of being and non-being and the consequent sorrow. The world appearance arises only in the mind, and this is illustrated by the dream state. Whatever is seen here as the world is but the expansion of the mind. I shall now describe to you the other viewpoint, that of men of wisdom, born of their direct experience. They declare, is that an unsuccessful attempt to blow a conch? You can blow, don't worry. I shall now describe to you the other viewpoint, that of the men of wisdom, born of their direct experience. They declare that the mind is born of one's obstinate clinging to a fancy or a deluded imagination. When obstinately clinging to a fancy, actually I am very happy and in a way astonished that so many people are listening to this and understanding this. I am really astonished. Really. Because it's not so easy. But there are people who are understanding it with a smile on their face or a frown on their face. Depends on who. It's amazing. I mean, I don't know. I never expected. We tried to keep the numbers down, but they went on increasing. You know, Yoga Vasishtha is meant when one person is sitting down and there is one or two people sitting with that person and having a discussion. This is the best scenery for, the scene for Yoga Vasishtha. Now this is expanded like a banyan tree. Actually so big that I am sitting under its shade. But I am glad that this is happening. I hope everybody is understanding something. Now there was a great Sufi teacher who was the founder of the order called the Naqshbandi order. And this the Ramachandra mission, heartfulness, all these originate from somebody who was initiated into that order. There was a person called Lalaji Maharaj who was initiated by a Sufi teacher of the Naqshbandi order. Then he taught Bapuji Maharaj and then became the, what is it called? Something they call it, I forgot. And then it split and one became heartfulness and the other became emptiness. I don't know what the other is called. Now the origin was the Naqshbandi order. So the Naqshbandi Sufis, the founder was somebody called Bahauddin Naqshband. The main thing is to meditate in the heart and receive. And that's the teaching. Open your heart, keep it open and receive. Now from the Vedantic point of view, there is no receiving or giving, but this is a practice, it's a meditative practice. So Bahauddin Naqshband had a disciple. Please don't misunderstand, I am not referring to you. Had a disciple who used to always fawn on him, flatter him with the hope that one day he would be the successor. And why do people flatter you? Because they want to take over or whatever. So, usually he used to teach in a small community. One day, there were 2,000 people. A big teaching crowd. The Sufis call it the halqa, which means the circle. And after it was over, after the satsang, we can say satsang, after the satsang was over, this fellow who was always fawning on him, everybody had left, so he said to him, "Oh Master, what a wonderful congregation, so beautiful. Everybody was listening so nicely." Please, not reference to us, huh? And it was so beautiful. So the Master said to him, "But you know, my friend, only one person understood." He was excelling because he thought, really accelerated, because he thought the Master is going to say that there were 2,000 people, but only you understood, only one person understood. So with great eagerness he asked, "Who, Master?" He said, "Me." So we'll see how it goes. Now I'm wondering now if I understood. Vasishtha continued. When obstinately clinging to a fancy, and therefore abandoning a thorough enquiry into the nature of the truth, one apprehends an object with that fancy only, and And such apprehension is described as conditioning or limitation. When such fancy is persistently and intensely indulged in, this world appearance arises in the consciousness. When the psychological conditioning or limitation is not dense, when it has become transparent, one becomes a liberated sage who apparently lives and functions because of his past momentum, even as a potter's wheel rotates after the initial impulse has been withdrawn, but he will not be born again. Why? Because in this case, the seed has been fried, as it were, and will not germinate into the world illusion. When the body falls, it is absorbed into the infinite. Of the two seeds for this world illusion, of the two seeds that cause this world illusion, what are they? Movement of prana and clinging to fancy. If one is rid of one or the other, it goes away. If one is rid of the movement of prana, then the fancy goes away. Or when one gets rid of the fancy, the movement of prana goes away. If both are done, it's great. But the two are interdependent. The mind creates the world illusion, and the mind is created by the moment of prana in one's own conditioning. Again, this moment of prana also takes place because of the mental conditioning of fancy. Thus, this vicious circle is completed. One feeds the other, one spurs the other into action. Motion is natural to prana, and when it moves in consciousness, the mind arises. When the conditioning keeps the prana in motion, the other is arrested and both fall. Rama, the notion of an object of knowledge or of experience is the seed for both the movement of prana and for the clinging to a fancy, for it is only when such desire for experience arises in the heart that such movement of prana and mental conditioning takes place. When such desire for experience is abandoned, both these cease instantly. Then what happens to that mind? It enjoys everything in every place and under all conditions. Of course, the indwelling consciousness is the seed for this desire of experience, etc. Hence, O Rama, strive to eradicate the desire for experience. Get rid of idleness. Because when you are idle, the desire for experience keeps coming more. When you are acting, at least part of your mind is applied in the action. When you are doing nothing. Hence, O Rama, strive to eradicate the desire for experience. Get rid of idleness. Free yourself from all experiences. Rama asked, "Oh, just a minute, sir. How can these two be reconciled? Can I seek freedom from all experiences and freedom from inactivity at the same time?" Vasishtha replied, "He who has no desire or hope for anything here, nor entertains a wish to rest in inactivity, such a one does not exist as a jiva. He is neither inactive nor does he seek to experience. He does not lean towards experience or the perception of objects, though he is engaged in ceaseless activity He is neither inactive nor does he do anything or experience anything. The objective experiences do not touch the heart at all. Hence he whose consciousness is not inactive is a liberated sage here and now. So Rama said, "Holy sir, kindly tell me how one may quickly destroy all these seeds of distraction and reach the supreme state." These seeds of sorrow, Rama, can each be destroyed by destruction of the previous one. But if you can at one stroke cut off all mental conditioning and by great self-effort rest in the state of pure consciousness, if however you wish merely to find your foothold in pure existence, you can achieve it by even greater effort. Similarly, by contemplating the infinite consciousness too, you can rest in the supreme state, but it demands great effort. Meditation is not possible on the objects of experience, for they exist only in the consciousness of the self. If you strive to destroy the conditioning, concepts, motions, habits, then in a moment all your errors and illnesses will vanish. However, it is more difficult than the ones described earlier. For until the mind is free from the moment of thought, cessation of conditioning is difficult. The mind does not cease to function and vice versa. Yet again, until the conditioning ceases, the unconditioned truth is not realized and vice versa. Since realization of the truth, cessation of the mind and the ending of conditioning are all interwoven together, it's extremely difficult to deal with them individually and separately. Hence, O Rama, by every means in your power, renounce the pursuit of pleasure and resort to all these three simultaneously. If all these are simultaneously practiced for a considerable time, they become fruitful, not otherwise. O Rama, this world appearance has been experienced as a truth for a long time. So it needs persistent practice for a long time to remove it. Wise ones declare that the abandonment of conditioning and the restraint of prana are of equal effect. Hence, one should practice them simultaneously. Prana is restrained by the practice of pranayama, and the yoga taught by the guru or by other means. When desires, aversions and cravings do not arise in the mind, even though the objects are in front, then it is to be inferred that the mental condition is weakened. Hence wisdom arises, further weakening the conditioning, the mind finally ceases. It is not possible to kill the mind without proper methods. Knowledge of the self, satsanga, abandonment of conditioning and the restraining of prana are the means to overcome the mind. Ignoring these and resorting to violent practices like hatha yoga, austerities, pilgrimage, rites and rituals is a waste of time. Self-knowledge alone bestows delight on you. A man of self-knowledge alone lives, hence gain self-knowledge, O Rama. Okay. I have thus provided you with a net woven with words which are indicative of the highest truth. Tie down the bird of your net, of your mind with this net, and then let the mind rest in your heart. Thus shall you attain self-knowledge, O Rama. Have you absorbed this truth imparted by me? Although it is mixed with various expressions and illustrations, even as the proverbial swan is able to separate milk from water when they are mixed, so drink the milk alone. You should contemplate this truth again and again. Reflect upon it from beginning to end. You should march along this path now, O noble one. Though engaged in diverse activities, you will not be bound by your intelligence if it is saturated with the truth. Otherwise, you will fall, even as an elephant falls from the cliff. Again, if you conceptualize this teaching for intellectual entertainment, for your intellectual entertainment and do not let it act in your life, you will stumble and fall like a blind man. In order to reach the state of perfection or liberation taught by me, you should live a life of non-attachment, doing what is appropriate in every situation as it reaches you. Rest assured that this is the vital factor in the teaching of all scriptures. Valmiki said, given leave to depart, all the kings and the sages of the assembly left for their abode. They contemplated Vasishtha's teachings and discussed it among themselves and spent a couple of hours in pleasant and deep sleep. Next morning, Rama, Lakshmana and all the others proceeded swiftly to the hermitage of Sage Vasishtha. All of them took their allotted asanas. As on the previous days. Vasishtha said, "O Rama, do you remember what I have so far told you? The words which are capable of awakening a knowledge of truth or self-knowledge?" Let's see what Rama says. Rama said, "All my doubts have been dispelled. I am free from attraction and resistance. I am established in my own nature. I am well and I rest in the self." You know the meaning of the Sanskrit and Hindi word swasthya, which means, what is swasthya? Good health, peace, tranquility, well-being. Now this word swasthya comes from the Sanskrit word swa, which means the self. The real swasthya is to rest in the self. It's only when one rests in the inner self or the Supreme Self that one experiences swasthya. That is called swasthya. Swa asta, swasthya. So I am happy, says Rama. I am established in nature. I rest in the self, I am happy. I am Rama, in whom the world finds refuge. Salutations to me, salutations to you. So here at this turning point, Rama recognizes that he is resting in the self and that other worlds find refuge in him. But he is ready now. Salutations to me and salutations to you. Rama said, not me. I don't mind saying salutations to you. O Rama, you are dear to me. Hence I declare the truth to you once again. Listen attentively. Now please, maybe a repetition. Listen, though for doing this, to listen, you have to assume the existence of diversity. Two things, listening and saying. Your consciousness will expand, and the truth that I shall expound will save you from sorrow, even they who are not fully awakened. Ignorance of the self. The life force and his retinue function here merely to provide energy for the moments inherent in living, not with any other motive. In the absence of knowledge, all the talking and roaring which people indulge in are like the sound produced by a gun. They inevitably proceed towards destruction and do not lead to salutary results. Fools enjoy the fruits of their labor, not knowing that they are resting and sleeping on a rock that is burning hot. Keeping company with such fools is like sitting in a forest on a tree which is about to be felled. Whatever you do for the sake of such people is like beating the air with a rod. What is given to them is thrown into the mud. And to converse with them is as meaningful as a dog barking at the sky. Now suddenly I remembered that if you go back to another teacher who maybe lived 1,000 years ago in another part of the world, who was supposed to be very kind, who said, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and so on. And yet in one place, it becomes a little aggressive. Exactly here. Keeping company with such fools is like sitting in the forest in a tree which is about to be felled. He didn't say that. What he said was a little more serious than this. Give not that which is good unto dogs. Person who never uttered a word like that. Give not that which is good unto dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they cast them down and trample them, and then turn back and rend you. So Vasishtha is saying, keeping company with such fools is like sitting, little more gentler language, in a forest on a tree which is about to be felled. Whatever you do for the sake of such people is like beating the air with a rod. Nothing is happening. What is given to them is thrown into mud. And to converse with them is as meaningful as a dog barking at the sky. Ignorance of the self is the source of all troubles and calamities. Is there a single trouble that does not spring from ignorance of the self? This entire creation is pervaded by ignorance which sustains it. One who is ignorant is visited again and again by terrible sorrow and rarely by pleasure. Only in the heart of the wicked grows the dreadful tree of infatuation. In the forest of this vicious heart rages the fire of hate. The mind is flooded with jealousy, giving rise to the growth of weeds of destructive criticism of others. The only lotus this heart knows is envy, which is sought by the bees of endless worry. Death is meant only for such vicious fools. Birth and childhood lead to youth. Youth leads to old age. And old age ends in death. And all these are repeatedly experienced by the ignorant. With a small piece of flesh which is called the eye, the foolish one sees a little particle of earth which he regards as mountains, lakes, forests and cities. They whom one regards as radiant women decked with pearls and other jewels are but the creation of one's own delusion. They are the ripples that arise in the ocean of lust. It is on account of delusion that one seeks wealth and prosperity, thinking that this is an answer to all our problems, which are sweet in the beginning to the dull-witted, but which are the cause of pairs of opposites, happiness and unhappiness, pleasure and pain, success and failure in the middle, and which come to an end very slowly. From the pursuit of prosperity arise countless branches of pleasure and numberless branches of unhappiness. This delusion, sometimes when you have pain, it's more useful than pleasure. First, it reminds you that there is not only pleasure, there is also pain. And it reminds you about the pleasure that you enjoyed in contrast with the pain. And it makes you aware of the fact that there is pain on this earth. But we don't want to eat that pain, we want only pleasure. But the pain is like the gooseberry. When you eat it raw, it's bitter. Wait for a while and allow it to sink. And then drink a glass of water. It becomes very sweet. This is the way pain is. Now there is one pain which is really very, very bitter, but which becomes sweet only at the culmination, which is the bitter, serious pain at not being able to see the truth. The pain that one feels that one is not able to break through the barriers, that one is not able to break through this mind which creates more and more illusions. Now when that pain becomes really serious, people try to substitute it and run away from it and occupy the mind with little entertainment, this and that. If somebody, one among many, manages to stay with that pain without trying to run away from it. But it is a tendency to run away. Natural, I am not saying anything, but suppose I say, okay, here comes this pain of separation from the true reality. I am not going to get rid of it by offering substitute ice creams. Let me stay with it and see what happens. Believe me, if you stay with it for some time, without appeasing it with all the entertainment that the mind builds up, which could include going to a guru, then the mind, going deep into that sorrow, suddenly discovers that it is free. Because it has nowhere else to hand. There are no, what are they called? Supports. There are no crutches. But we are so frightened of it. We are always suddenly about to go catch hold of a crutch. The crutch could even be, Sri Am is there, he will save me. Could even be that. If you are free of all that, perhaps you will understand Maybe you already understood, I don't know. Anyway. This delusion flows like a river from the beginningless time, and it is muddied and darkened by useless actions and the reaction. Such actions are like an ill wind that raises a cloud of dust whose particles are physical and mental illness, old age and various relationships. All these lead to death, and the passage of time, which has an insatiable and voracious appetite, and which consumes all the worlds when they are ripe, as it were. Youth is haunted by goblins of worries and anxieties, which dance when the wisdom moon does not shine. And then youth proceeds towards denser darkness of delusion. One's tongue, the faculty of speech, is overworked in the service of the common and uncultured folk here, and it grows debilitated. In the meantime, poverty spreads its thousands of branches, yielding fields of fruits of unhappiness and hard labor. Yet greed, which is empty and insubstantial and destructive of one's own spiritual elevation, continues to proclaim victory in the darkness of delusion. Stealthily, the cat of senility or old age catches the mouse of youth. Nobody knows how it happens. Slowly. This creation is essenceless, yet it gains a false reality. It even grows the fruits of dharma, righteous living, and artha, pursuit of prosperity. This world, enveloped by the sky and endowed with the eyes of the sun and the moon, is upheld by the delusion of its substantiality. In the lake of this world appearance, lilies known as bodies blossom, lilies, and they are resorted to by bees known as life forces. The decadent concept of the world existence lies imprisoned in the senses, bound by self-limitation and conditioning, and by the powerful thread of hopes and desires. This world appearance is like a delicate creeper which constantly trembles in the wind of movement of prana or life force, and which constantly sheds all kinds of beings, abandoning them to their destruction. But there are many noble people who have risen above the quagmire of this hill known as world existence, and devoid of all doubt, rejoice for a little while. There are divine beings who dwell like lotuses in the blue expanse of the firmament. In this creation, actions are like the lily which is polluted by vain desire for the fruit of such actions. This world appearance is like a little fish which comes into being in this infinite space, but which is soon swallowed by the obstinate and invincible old vulture known as Kritanta. Kritanta means the end or conclusion of action. Krita Anta. Yet diverse scenes arise and cease day after day, as ripples and waves appear and disappear on the surface of the ocean. Such is the state of this creation. But since the ignorant are bound fast to their own false notions, neither transiency of the world nor the hard blow they suffer in their life is able to awaken them. All prosperity and all adversity, childhood, youth, old age and death, as also suffering, what is known as being immersed in happiness and unhappiness and all the rest of it, All these are the extensions of the dense darkness of ignorance. Ignorance expands by means of ignorance and yields greater ignorance when it seeks wisdom. It feeds on wisdom and finally grows into wisdom in the end. Lord, I am puzzled by your statement. What statement puzzled you? Okay. Lord, I am puzzled by your statement that even the gods like Vishnu, Shiva are all part of this ignorance of avidya. Please explain this statement to me. Vasishtha replied, the truth or existence, consciousness, bliss, Sat Chit Ananda, absolute, is beyond thought and understanding. If anybody thought, I will capture this supreme Brahman, Sat Chit Ananda in my mind, in my thoughts, and failure, not possible. It's only when the mind ceases all these efforts that something happens. Which is why the Upanishad declares, Tena Tyaktena Bhanji, let go and rejoice. Somebody translated it, let us go and rejoice. Yeah, if you are centered on the truth, please go and rejoice. No harm. Okay. The truth or existence, consciousness, bliss, Satchit Ananda, absolute, is beyond thought and understanding. It is supreme peace and omnipresent. It transcends imagination and description. There arises naturally in it the faculty of conceptualization. This self-understanding is of two kinds, is of three kinds. One is subtle, the other is middling, and the other is the gross. The intellect that comprehends these three regards them as sattva, rajas and tamas. The three together constitute what is known as prakriti or nature. Avidya or ignorance is prakriti. This is the source of all beings. Beyond it is the supreme. These three qualities of nature, sattva, rajas and tamas, are subdivided again into three, with subtle, middling and gross. Thus you have 9 categories. These 9 categories constitute the entire universe. The sages, the ascetics, the perfected ones, the dwellers of the netherworld, the celestials and the gods are the sattvic part of ignorance, but still ignorance. Among these, the celestial and now in ignorance, the word used here is avidya, ignorance. Not like you say, oh, he's an ignorant person. No, avidya. The sages, the ascetics, the perfected ones, the dwellers of the netherworld, the celestials and the gods are the good part, the sattvika part of, but still ignorance, maya. Among these, the celestials and dwellers of the netherworld form the tamasa. The sages form the rajasa. And the gods Vishnu, Shiva, etc. form the sattvika part. They who come under this category of sattva are not born again. Hence, they are considered liberated. They also exist only as long as this world lasts. Because after each manvantara, there is a new Brahma, there is a new Vishnu, there is a new Shiva. The old one is gone, along with the Pralaya, it's all absorbed and gone. Now, they who come under the category of sattva are not born again, hence they are considered liberated. They also exist as long as this world lasts. The others, like the sages who are liberated while living, jivana mukta, shed their body in course of time, reach the abode of the gods, dwell there during the period of existence of the world and then are liberated. Thus this part of avidya or ignorance has become vidya or self-knowledge. Avidya arises in the vidya just as ripples arise in the ocean. And avidya dissolves in vidya just as ripples dissolve in the water. The distinction between the ripples and the water is again unreal and verbal. Even so, the distinction between ignorance and knowledge is unreal and verbal. From the standpoint of the Absolute, there is neither ignorance nor knowledge. When you cease to see that knowledge and ignorance are two distinct entities, what exists alone exists. A reflection of vidya in itself is considered avidya. When these two notions are abandoned, what remains is the truth. It may be something or it may be nothing. It is omnipresent, omnipotent. It's more empty than space, and yet it is not empty because it is full of consciousness. Like the space within a pot, it is indestructible and everywhere. It is the true reality in all things, just as magnet makes iron filings move by its very presence. It causes cosmic motion even without intending to do so. Hence it is said that it does nothing at all. Rama asked, Lord, please tell me how this cosmic intelligence becomes things like insentient rocks. Vasishtha replied, in these substances like rocks, consciousness remains but immobile, having abandoned even the subtle thought faculty, but not having able to reach the state of no mind. It's like the state of deep sleep, far away from the state of liberation. Even in rocks and material objects which you think are not conscious, there is this supreme consciousness residing as if in deep sleep and therefore not recognized outside. Rama asked again, but if they exist in a state of deep sleep, sushupti, without any concepts or percepts in the rock, I think they are close to liberation. Vasishtha replied, Moksha, liberation or the realization of the infinite is not existing as an immobile creature. Liberation is attained when one arrives at the state of supreme peace after intelligent inquiry into the nature of the self, and after this has brought about an inner awakening. Kaivalya or total freedom is in the attainment of pure being after all mental conditioning is transcended consciously and after thorough investigation. The wise ones say that one is established in pure being or the Brahman only after one has investigated the nature of the truth as expounded in the scriptures, in the company of and with the help of enlightened sages. Now I want to say something. Now it's clear, not only from the Yoga Vasishtha, but it's clear that if the Supreme Brahman, in Vedanta there is two ways of saying it. One is the true Supreme Consciousness, the pure consciousness, which is neither one nor many, which is undefinable and so on, but which is pure bliss. That Brahman, which is the essence from which everything else comes and goes and so on. This is to be attained by looking at everything in this world that is palpable to our senses and saying that since this is born and dies or created and then is destroyed, cannot be the everlasting Supreme Brahman. So it is not this, it is not this, it is not this, it is not this, until you come to a state where there is nothing to say it is not this, there is only one is. One way. The other Vedantic way, now this is called Neti Neti. Otherwise it's defined as Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. But if the Supreme Being is all pervading, then the Mithya also is pervaded by the Supreme. So the another way of saying in Vedanta is Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Everything is the Brahman. This. You can't differentiate, oh, it is not the, no, this is also the Brahman. But why is it seen as non-Brahman? Because of the mischief of the mind. If the mind is still and the prana is still, works both ways, then one realizes that this is also Brahman. It's not somewhere a Brahman being without form, shape, unutterable, cannot reside in some small place. It's everywhere. You cannot say that it does not exist here. If it is there, it should be also here. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, everything is the Brahman. If that is the case, even the rocks are Brahman. Right? So those who say that if you worship a Shivalinga, which is made of rock, it's an illusion, are wrong, because there also there is the Brahman. You worship the Linga because you consider that the spiritual being, the Brahman is in it. So you worship it. Of course, it is better to worship a speaking, walking, talking human being who is also Brahman. But for purposes of meditation, to worship a linga or a stone image, there is no contradiction in it, because it is also the Brahman. You may see that it is inert. Anybody who looks closely enough inside it sees a lot of activity going on there. We don't see it with our eyes. Our eyes are only made for a certain frequency of perception. Beyond that we cannot see. Nor can the ear hear things which is beyond its frequency. So if you say, wherever I see there is a Brahman, it is also there at the object that you worship. Ultimately, what is to be understood, that the worshipper and the worshipped are the same, are none other than the Supreme Blissful Satchidananda. This is to be understood. This is the main teaching of the Yoga Vasishtha. And offering two ways. One is through understanding and enquiry with the help of a teacher, or through the teaching, learning of a particular form of yoga by which the prana is stilled. But before that one has to understand why the prana is to be stilled, because when the prana is stilled, then the illusion-making mind is stilled. When the illusion manufacturing mind is still, then there is only the Supreme Brahman. You don't go anywhere or reach anywhere, it's here. It's nowhere else. I mean, you can say it is there, okay, fine, but you are here, it's also here. So you are free. No? Think about it, give thought. Get rid of this illusion of the mind. The essence of the meaning of Om Namah Shivaya is Shivoham, Shivoham. Chidananda Rupaha, Shivoham, Shivoham. Nirvana Shataka. Thank you.